Hello and welcome to Breaking Bread with Rivaaj Maharaj, where nothing is off the table. For today's episode, I wanted to talk about the ISIS prisoners and the ISIS families that have absconded from their prisons in Syria. So without further ado, let's get into it. There's been some really troubling information coming out of Syria recently. The United States were involved in an alliance of sorts with the Kurds in Syria who helped the Americans maintain and control an area within Syria. And they assisted the Americans in this area that was responsible for the exports of large amounts of wheat and oil. And this in turn meant that the crippling sanctions on the Syrian people became even worse because wheat from these areas was not allowed to be shipped down to the rest of Syria. And the oil that was being extracted in that part of Syria was being controlled by Turkey's Erdogan and a company belonging to Erdogan's son and son-in-law, who incidentally was the Minister of Energy in Turkey at the time. They had a trucking company that would truck this oil out of Syria, have it repackaged and then sold on to Israel. Now, all the while the Kurds were in an alliance with the United States, they kept a lid on these ISIS fighters and their families, the likes of Shamima Begum and all these other clowns that went over to go and behead and fight for the Caliphate, all the dastardly things they did to the Yazidis. Yeah, these people were being controlled by the Kurds. However, Donald Trump, in his great wisdom recently, decided to switch sides and abandon the Kurds. Now, when he did that, he began embracing al-Shara. Now, let's have a look at who al-Shara Jolani is. This bloke is somebody that used to belong to Al-Qaeda and form part of the ISIS nexus in that region, in Syria. So he's somebody that was also one known to go and behead civilians, kids, kill with impunity, and wage a dastardly, gruesome, violent war against the Syrian population. Nevertheless, he's been given the blessings of Europe and the Americans. Donald Trump had him in for tea at the White House. So al-Shara has now had a trim of the beard, put on a Hugo Boss suit, and he's Time Magazine's Man of the Year. He's going to be modeling in Vogue, and he's now the new kid on the block. The problem with that is, this monster has been responsible for all these vile crimes I just told you about in Syria. He's now come into government. They then made a push to take over the remaining parts of Syria that his government did not control, and these areas were controlled by the Kurds. They went in, and the Kurds, subsequently realizing that they had been led to the slaughter by the Americans, abandoned those camps and fled. Jolani's guys claim that between the time the Kurds flee from that region and Jolani's now new Syrian army arrived there was a space of 10 hours, which gave ISIS plenty of time to evacuate the jails. Now, if you look at it, Jolani was a part of all these crew that were being held up in prisons in Syria. So what are the odds, realistically, that he is going to go there and maintain a same level of control that the Kurds maintained over these people? Because bear in mind, the Kurds had reason to hold them. These ISIS morons were the ones that were murdering and massacring Kurds as well. Now, why on earth would Jolani go and imprison or further imprison all his buddies and their families that were in jail? he may switch sides, change clothing and have a trim of the beard, put a bit of perfume on, but it doesn't mean that his morals have changed. And us relying on his word, the word of a man that goes out and kills kids, innocent kids and civilians, yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. But nevertheless, his government is blaming the Kurds for having abandoned the place. And one of his ministers talks about WhatsApp groups that were being formed and how Lebanese ISIS families were celebrating via WhatsApp when their families returned. He says that Lebanon is 800 kilometers away and it is impossible for a sudden jailbreak to enable these people to travel that vast distance to be in there with their families or to celebrate with their families. So this was something that was preemptive and it was premeditated and it was set up in advance. Now, if it was set up in advance, it meant that ISIS had an idea that this was going to happen. And I wonder where that idea could have come from. Because I don't think there's any love lost between the Kurds and these ISIS fighters. So let's rule the Kurds out of this equation. The other thing is that a lot of ISIS fighters from Iraq had repositioned themselves prior to this jailbreak because prior to the Kurds leaving the area, because they knew it was going to happen. And what they did was they broke out of these prisons their most valued members and took them over to Iraq. Now you've got these animals that are now on the loose. There's thousands. You know, the one prison camp, I think Al-Hajj or Al-Raj or whatever it's been called, has over 20,000 people. The majority of these nutters are all running around loose. And you know they're going to turn up in Europe. You know they're going to turn up in the States. So you know what is going to happen in the future. Brace yourself for more of these terrorist attacks because they're going to be coming thick and fast.
Britain now faces a chilling renewed security threat as battle-hardened ISIS fighters are slyly sneaking across borders into the country undetected, the Telegraph warns urgently.
You've also had the breakout of the prison of a lady by the name of Fahad, who was an ISIS recruiter for the group. She was contained within the jail in Syria and has now managed to escape. So her forte in life is recruiting for ISIS. I don't think you're going to find her in a corner shop selling sweets. I think she's going to go back to what she knows and what she's good at. So every time we try and get ahead of this, the dynamics change and these animals are let loose. And now they're coming to a place near you. Believe me, when these morons arrive in Europe, there is going to be bloodshed. So thank you for taking the time to spend with us. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And please remember to like, share and subscribe as it helps us with the algorithm and it helps our channel to grow.